Hello, everyone. Welcome to WD Carousel Podcast. My name's Ian.
And I'm Crystal.
We're going to dive right back into the Animal Kingdom with our Discovering series.
Our last Animal Kingdom episode for the Discovering series.
I know. And I love this park. This has been a lot of fun for me.
Well, this is your favorite park, so it makes sense.
It's got a slight edge against Epcot for my tied favorite park.
Yeah.
Basically, it just barely wins over Epcot. And also, Epcot's in such a state of flux right now that I kind of don't know.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? It's at this point, it's kind of hard to know exactly what Epcot's going to look like. I have hope that it will, but we'll get to that when we start talking about Epcot.
And it all depends on pandemic-y things. So we're just going to move on past that. I was also trying to find out what park we're going to be moving to after this, but I guess it's a secret for everybody, not just me.
Yeah, it's just we're all going to not know.
We'll find out when I have to do the research for it.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fun. All right, so let's we actually have a little bit of background for this one.
I'm going to let you do that, boy.
Oh, okay. So when in 2014 Disney and James Cameron kind of came together and had their first meeting about it, the original intention was going to be just a Hollywood Studios thing, kind of what ended up happening with
Star Wars.
Galaxy's Edge. Okay. So like at the time though, the studio tour was still functional.
The background tour.
Yeah.
The backlot tour?
I think
that's what
the
it was.
Backlot tour.
Backlot.
Yeah, I think so. It might have been before 2014. Anyway, at the time, it was still functional. And they were like, well, like, what are we going to do? And then eventually they were like, somebody was like, hey, what about Animal Kingdom? And they're like, and at that point, they also then moved into saying like the reason that the person that brought that up, I don't know who it was, they said that it would make Animal Kingdom into an all-day experience. So that was kind of their push for it was, as of now, there was kind of once the animals went to bed, like everyone's like, okay, we don't care where we go, you can't stay here.
And before we get too far into this is actually the ideal time to bring up that this area of Animal Kingdom was originally supposed to be a completely different world. It was supposed to be Beastly Kingdoms. That's why there is on the main signage that's still produced for Animal Kingdom, there's a dragon.
Yep.
So they were
it's still there.
Yeah, they were supposed to have this whole land that was inspired by mythical animals.
It was supposed to be like Yep. The animals of the past, the present, and the fantastical.
Yeah.
Is like
so there was going to be like a dragon roller coaster, if I remember correctly. There was a unicorn attraction too, and then I believe there was one other thing. So they had this huge idea, this huge concept that they were going to get into. And then 9/11 happened because this park was only opened in 1998. So they were anticipating this would be like the next level release. And then 9/11 happened. Tourism dried up. They decided to just keep the substitution that was currently in place, which was Camp Mini Mickey, until the foreseeable future. And then this came up. So that's the reason why there was perfect spacing for this land to be there, and it makes it the ideal location when whoever, because I didn't do the research either on who actually made the suggestion, said, hey, why don't you move it away from Hollywood Studios? And there's a whole land over there which is supposed to be mythical creatures, and you guys are kind of mythical creatures.
Yeah, and also like, there's like a land there that we put there, but there's literally like one thing there, and I do have that.
There's a character meet and greet.
Yeah, and there's one other thing, but I do have it in my section for that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later.
But yeah, so it made perfect sense in terms of somebody actually brought it up. But yeah, so it was definitely exciting for them because they were like, hey, we can now make Animal Kingdom into an all-day experience, which was kind of a big deal. Also,
pre-COVID.
Once they got into this pre-COVID, once James Cameron they all started diving into this concept, he was also surprised that they were thinking an entire land. Like he was pretty much just coming into this going,
One
hey,
ride,
let's do a ride. Yeah, like one single well put together attraction like they had done with George Lucas. Like he was kind of thinking like,
I'd be okay with just one. Can I have just one ride, please?
Yeah, he's like, I'm good. Like I don't need to go all in. Like he was not real. He wasn't against it, but I don't think that was his original thought.
This is a great example of Disney Plusing. He's like, well, what about we do one ride? And they're like, what if you get a whole land?
And he's like, okay,
Pandora. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Also, I found out a little bit about his contract. Apparently, in addition to licensing, he does get a cut of merchandise sales, which is crazy.
Oh my god!
So,
just imagining having a slice, even just like a part of 1% of Disney merch.
Fractional slice. Oh. I know, it's crazy. So yeah. Anyway, so he's doing fine. His moral story is James Cameron's doing great.
Not to mention the movies that are going to be, coming out
eventually made.
Eventually,
right. And again, Joe Rohde was the senior designer, of course, because that's kind of, I kind of get the sense that Animal Kingdom was maybe his baby a little bit. And so
I understand. And if you could have that kind of control over an entire park to make it exactly how, like Tony Baxter originally did with Euro Disney.
Right.
And just those, I would love to can I have like my little sprinklings all over the place and make this the most ideal park possible?
I know. So when they launched it, reportedly it was a $500 million initial investment, and it's 12 acres of land in the Animal Kingdom.
Initially, did they blow past that?
I see, and I don't know. They
maybe they might.
That
have
was like
talked
the
about
one. That was the one reported number they gave, and they said nothing else. So I didn't ask any additional questions. Yeah,
nope.
Yeah. So for those of you that are, and then so we also have some background. So
yes, the story background.
The story, yeah,
not the actual production background.
Right.
It's
of course it's not
background.
Not nearly as elaborate as Dinoland USA, but anyway. still blown away by that.
Me too.
Yeah, the land is, so the way it's put together is, there was the story of Avatar, which if you haven't seen the movie, I mean, I don't know where you've been, but it's a movie that was the highest grossing film of all time. So moving on.
Pocahontas with blue people. Moving on. Yeah, exactly.
The idea was, after all this happened, there was this big fight between the Na'vi, the native people, and the white man.
What are they?
Sorry,
RDA?
That's Pocahontas. The RDA. Yeah.
RDA.
Yeah, and they were trying to basically exploit Pandora for its natural resources. Mm-hmm. Got a fight with the natives who were deeply, deeply tied to. Yeah, you can see where this is going. So anyway, after the course of the first film, and I don't know when the second and third movies sit in this timeline, but anyway, this is many years after all of that, and humans are kind of basically going back. The humans and the Na'vi are kind of back in connection with each other again.
Yeah.
And at that point, they're kind of doing ecotourism.
I think it's when RDA pulled out and when Ace moved in. Ace was like, we're gonna make you a tourist destination.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of like, I think the idea from what I read was the Alpha Centauri Expeditions Ace was supposed to be like the result of kind of like a collaboration between Na'vi and humans, to kind of be like, so all the money that people would make by going to visit was actually like the money with the profits were supposed to go into like helping restore the ecosystem.
Oh, so maybe like the safaris in Africa?
Yes.
Sort of situation?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's, and that's how they kind of tied it into the mission of Animal Kingdom with the conservation aspect. That's how they tied that all together.
Yeah, because of course they did.
Of course. So then because of that, this is one of the, it's kind of up there with Galaxy's Edge and one of the most heavily themed lands in terms of kind of like taking you out of knowing that you're in a Disney park and kind of pushing you more into that world in a more immersive way.
This is definitely Disney 5.0. I'm not going to say 2.0 because there's been a lot of redos. But this is next level Disney where you're actually immersed in the world. Mm-hmm. And not just the attraction. So you're able to go in and see what the world is supposed to be like in the films.
Right. And the cool thing too, and they made a good decision in my book, and they did this to a certain degree with Galaxy's Edge too, but what they did is they created a world that is definitely familiar, that you've seen from the movie, but they also took you out of the timeline. So they took you far enough away in either direction from the story that you're familiar with to make it so you didn't reach, like, I would call it like a like the landscape version of an uncanny valley. Like, you don't get so close that you're now like so hyper aware of like what's happening that you start to kind of get taken out of it. So it works really well that way.
Yeah, it's not like the way that Walt trapped himself with Tomorrowland, where Tomorrowland caught up with him. Right. This is a chance to be able to intentionally set the timeline where you will never have to worry about running into it. Also, being an imaginary land, that helps as well.
Yes. Well, and I think the biggest thing is you're so far away from the original story that people are never gonna freak out that they're trying to be hyper vigilant about like the actual story. You're not gonna run into it too. So yeah, exactly like you said.
Like, you might run into it with Galaxy's Edge though. Oh,
you might.
The Star Wars nerds.
At least with Galaxy, I know. At least with Galaxy's Edge, they did set an actual timeline in the main universe, but what they did also do is they set a world that hasn't yet been visited.
Yes,
which
and we're not going to
was a good decision.
We're not going to digress into that. Yes,
yeah.
So
we'll
back
get there.
to this though. It was intended, and so when you're in the land, it is already been reestablished as a vacation destination by ACE, Alpha Centauri Expeditions. So what you're going to find around is you're going to find a lot of the old tech from RDA still rotting, rusting, hanging around you. They'll be repurposing things. And then you'll see the new ACE updated stuff, which is shiny and chrome and pretty and, makes sense that it would be the most newest
stuff. Yeah. So even like the details that I know for the RDA stuff, like the manhole covers you'll see throughout Disney in most places, it's just like a Mickey face.
I love the manhole covers in this.
Yeah, they have like an RDA logo on them, like that was like from the original infrastructure of the old stuff.
But do you know why they have it set up the way they do? Because along with the manhole cover, you're going to see metal lines coming, 4 metal lines equidistant from each other coming into the manhole cover. Do you know why that is?
No.
So what they are trying to portray is that RDA, who did a lot of going out to different foreign planets and bringing pod systems for establishing, research centers, whatever. That was supposed to not necessarily be a manhole cover, but like a bolt area to connect this square of a prefab structure, including the concrete, to the others. So they're supposed to be like security bolts going in. So you're going to see the 4 different corners of the courtyard, let's just say.
It's like quadrants of... Got it. It's quadrants of prefab tech. That's cool.
So every little... It's not supposed to be manhole covers.
No, every little thing feels like the old RDA stuff is aged beautifully. It just feels the world just exudes detail. But so and that brings us to a Joe Rohde quote where he was talking about kind of in relation to he was saying this because of somebody asked about Pandora, but he's saying it as of all of the park in general, because Animal Kingdom contains real animals. The rest of the park's realism needs to be bumped up even higher than other parks in Disney to match the fact that they're real animals, which I had never thought about that way before. You have to be really pushing the realism factor on every single aspect, which is why we've talked about how amazingly immersive all the worlds in Animal Kingdom are, because you're looking at real animals, and it's kind of disingenuous if the world isn't there with them.
Yeah, I will say that in this land, you'll notice that there aren't animals, even though it's Animal Kingdom. There is one area that I can think of that actually has quote unquote animals. They're audio animatronic, but it is in a pond pool area when you are coming off the Flight of Passage ride, and you're going to see these little like squiddy
they're down in the
animals, and they bubble and they move. But then also hidden around that area, which is kind of just a little Easter egg, you have these ginormous bugs that are blending into the background so well that most people don't know that they're there. But that's kind of the only animal options that you see in Pandora.
Yeah, they do have a pretty amazing soundscape. It doesn't have the strong scores. There is they did write scores for it from the original. The original composers actually came in and did a score for Pandora, but they didn't. It's not as pushed as it is in other worlds. You know, like when you're in the Magic Kingdom and other places. This is much more ambient, and most of the time you're just going to hear the noises from Pandora itself, all the
natural fauna.
Yes,
bugs,
which is, and it's amazingly distinctive. Like you hear it, you're like, oh wow, I've definitely stepped into Pandora. It sounds both familiar in the fact that it's this kind of soundscape, but it's also different and alien enough to know that you're in Pandora. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
So should we do the walkthrough?
Let's do the walkthroughs. You wanna? I'll get on my shoes and I'll.
Ooh, where's my map? I don't know what I did with my map. Boo!
Boo! That's okay. We'll start stepping.
I found it. Hold on.
She found it. Okay.
It's in arm's reach, but I have to bend over.
Oh no!
And I'm dropping things, but that's fine.
Oh no!
Okay, got my map. We're good. That empty beer can
really
sit on the floor. Okay.
If you get a chance to watch our YouTube edition sometimes, there's some fun stuff like this that happens that you wouldn't see otherwise.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Pandora's map is up on my screen.
Pandora's up. Let's go. Okay, so as you walk from Discovery Island, so Pandora is kind of, if you're looking at Discovery Island, it's kind of down and to the left from the map. And so you will cross the river as you always do from when you're on Discovery Island, your kind of one-stop shop to get to everywhere else. It's actually kind of one of the neatest, because this is our last one, it's kind of the neatest setups because you do have that water surrounding it on all sides. So you just kind of always just hop onto a bridge and you're hopping over either into the way out or into another world.
Yeah,
so
you're popping into a different environment.
It's a nice physical separation between the different worlds. I think is kind of cool. So first thing you do when you reach from Discovery Island into Pandora is you will see a Wilderness Explorer stop on the right in the direction of travel. And then as you continue on, there is a path to the right that will take you kind of down through the floating falls area, which is really pretty amazing, as well as up the path that'll take you over to Africa, that long path we've talked about in the previous episode.
Big guy here.
Yes. And then if you continue straight, we're going back to looking straight again, you will continue down the path. You will go towards Navi River Journey. And then
which I believe we rope dropped that one day, right?
We did rope drop that one day. We've talked about this. We had an episode where we talked about all this, but we will also talk about this again in a moment. And then we will continue on the main path along to the right. Then you will run into a flight of passage to the left. And then you will continue on the path and you will kind of go through the main it's kind of their main commerce area. That's the way I like to think of it. You've got wind traders.
Can't really see it in this map too much, but I think it's this area that we're talking about.
Okay, so you've got on the right, you will see wind traders, Pongu Pongu, and the Satuli Canteen all on that side. Then you kind of loop back around and you'll be kind of back toward the floating falls path area again, either towards Africa or back towards the Discovery Island area. And I had to do all that with just words. Did that work?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay, good. Because I don't think I
have a map for Epcot or Hollywood Studios, but we'll see what we can come up with.
We'll print something. I have a printer now.
So there are two attractions, as we've talked about, not just in this episode, but in others. And there is the Flight of Passage, which is the huge guy that everybody waits for. It's back up, even COVID times, to 2 hours.
Oh my God. It is, to be fair, it's an amazing attraction. I've been on it 3 times total now.
I've been on it twice.
First time was amazing. Second time was amazing. Third time, I had the problem that you talked about when you wrote it with me.
I got
where
motion
like
sick.
And the 3D you said didn't quite work for you.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't quite work, and that actually happened to me the third time. And I don't know if it's just like positioning or the glasses or both,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that might happen every so often. Like I've been on it enough times now where it didn't
It's the luck
work
of
as
the
well.
draw.
It's like it was still really good. Like it's still like the effect is still pretty amazing. And I was sitting next to my dad when we got off, and he was like, "Okay, that was amazing." So it's
And you're like,
still working.
I am feeling
I'm like,
funny in my tummy.
It was not. I didn't feel quite ill as much as I felt kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
Like and I had two experiences where it definitely matched up. So I feel like it was mostly just because of luck of the draw of something.
Yeah.
Where it didn't quite work out. And it's a pretty newfangled and interesting 3D tech
device.
Newfangled. Yeah, it's definitely like a more interesting 3D tech that isn't deployed in a lot of other places. So who knows? The glasses might be just kind of finicky.
Maybe
so,
they might have been a little
yeah.
scratched or something, but I do have some little like hidden tidbits for your walk on to Flight of Passage. So when you're first walking through the queue and you're going through the floating mountains, if you look to your left in the far mountain, there's a little cave kind of to the right. Now I say left and right, but you look to your left and then it's the right mountain. You're going to see these sleeping stingbats, which if you are familiar with the movie and or have been on the attraction before, they're actually the food of the banshee. And so it's kind of interesting that they brought that little detail to a far cave mountain of the floating mountains that you can actually see the little stingbats hanging in there, hiding from the banshees.
Yeah.
Also in the back area of the floating mountains, because the floating mountains are completely covered with a lot of different waterfalls, but there are actually two fake waterfalls.
Yes.
Back there. So they are rotating wheels that actually rotate slower than you would think, just because they want to make the illusion of distance. And so they're just carved wheels spinning slowly, and then they have this like chicken mesh on the bottom that, since you're far enough away, it kind of looks like mist.
Right. Oh,
and you really need like a telephoto lens to be able to see which of the falls are actual real falls versus one of the two fake falls.
I will say that queue might be the most detailed of any queue in the Florida parks anyway. I don't know for sure of every Disney park ever. But
I don't know. I mean, we got to Galaxy's Edge, but
I know I've heard there is one attraction I have not been on that I've heard has a pretty epic queue.
I need to take you as soon as COVID stops being a thing.
I know we'll make it happen, but I know it's.
When you're entering in the standard queue of Flight of Passage, get past the caves and head towards the metal wall areas, you're going to see reference for JC Shoring 08.016.54. And that's actually James Cameron, and that's his birthday.
Oh, funny. Of course they would do something like that. Of course.
There's also in the science area that you walk by that has the huge body of the Na'vi hanging out in the living water goo, whatever you want to call it. You're actually going to be seeing a whole bunch of reference books around, and this one I thought was kind of fun because they have a book that they had actually made printed that is Pandoran Botany by Grace Augustine, and for those of you big nerds, you'll recognize that name as Sigourney Weaver's character in the movie. And even in the movie, it went so far as to say she literally wrote the book on Pandoran Botany.
Pandora. She sure did.
And so they have a book on Pandoran Botany with her character's name, Grace Augustine, on there. And then the final thing that I'm going to bring up is the handprints that you notice when you leave the attraction, you're going to see 3 handprints on the side of the wall in red with a JC, a JL, and a JR. And therefore, James Cameron, Joe Rohde, and then the producer, John Landau.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And it's just kind of like your little ending credits to the Flight of Passage attraction.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do have an affinity for both attractions in this park. Unfortunately, they can be lengthy lines for what you get, but if you can fast pass them or rope drop them, they are pretty amazing. And the other one, of course, is Navi River Journey, which is definitely a very short attraction for what you have to wait for sometimes. Just
for what you wait for, but I will still, even after being on every single attraction other than Mickey's Runaway Railway, I will say this animatronic is hands down still the best in the Disney parks.
I absolutely agree with you. I think the biggest thing for me that I think that might be true, this is just my own theory, is that the character isn't human. So like, even like, because there's a couple of the same generation animatronics in other that are brand new in other parts of the parks,
Galaxy's
and
Edge.
that are really good. Yeah, Galaxy's Edge that are really good. And I've seen some, and there's even more that I haven't seen that I know you have, and they're really good, but they're human. And there is sort of a problem with that. Just like they're really good,
well, I
but
wouldn't say that they're human, because the ones in Galaxy's Edge, I mean, they have the smuggler and then they have a pilot, which I'm not going to name names because we're not talking about Galaxy's Edge, but
yeah,
they are not as fluid. This character, you even told me when you first watched the ride through, or the first time you rode it, I can't remember which one, you were afraid to like stare at it and make full eye contact because it was so lifelike. It was so lifelike.
It was there was like it had, of all of the animatronics that I've seen at Disney, that one has like this sort of, it actually feels like it has sort of a soul. Like it has sort of like a life force that I don't know how to explain it. Like I don't know how to explain why it. Yeah, it's amazing. It's
huge, but it's moves huge. So fluidly, and it's singing a song, but
and quickly.
The way that it just, it's the best audio animatronic on Disney parks.
Yep, I agree.
I'm saying I'm incredible. Throwing in the towel. That's it. That's our vote.
Throwing it down. That's the one. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
The rest of the ride is yawnable, but one animatronic.
The rest of the ride, is definitely shorter than I'd like it to be, and not as many like things happen. There was many like focal points. Like you said, like there's like little blips of things happening. There's not that many scenes like you'd expect from a Pirates or another one that's another one of their boat rides. So that's kind of the biggest bummer, I think, for me on that one. But from an ambience perspective, it shows off that kind of, if you don't get to go in the evening, if you don't get to go to the whole park in the evening, it's a nice experience where you get to see what it feels like at night.
You're not seeing my Pandora face. World. I'm sorry. The projector screens for the animals, because they're trying to make it seem like it's kind of a safari attraction, but they use depth perception projector screens to be able to,
effect. Yep.
Show an image of an animal while still having things going on behind them. It's so obvious. It's just, they could do better.
This bugs you. This bugs you a lot more than it bugs me.
They blew the budget on the final Navi, which 100% worth it, hands down. But I wish that they would have given a couple more sort of something in there.
I'll say this is where I'm at. I will say, yes, they probably used too many projectors, considering the fact that they had, like you said, like they blew the budget on that one animatronic. It'd have been nice to have a couple more things. I think that the projector effects themselves weren't as dreadful as they could have been, and they don't detract for me. They don't add anything, is kind of where I'm at. Like I'm not like, ooh, that's a cool focal point. I'm like, I wish they would have had something else physical that I could have looked at besides just that thing. Like, to use it as a filler is fine, but to have more real things to look at would have been nice. Is kind of where I'm at. It's the projectors for me are showing a lack of other physical things than detracting of the projectors themselves. That's my
maybe
my
part
take.
of my issue is because they portray some of the Na'vi running around on those projectors too.
Sure, that's true. They do have them running in the back.
Consistency. If you were going to have animals be on those projectors and then have the Na'vi be actual animatronic characters, okay. But don't phone it in. Don't phone it in.
I don't know. It's again. I think, as I recall, the Na'vi were a little farther back. But again,
we're making excuses at this point in time.
I see your point, but I also it didn't bug me as much as it bugs you.
Yeah, I know.
That's all. That's all I'm saying. Anyway,
moving on to there are two dining options.
Yeah.
One of them I have eaten at, one of them I have not. And by eaten at, I mean it was definitely a quick service window where I grabbed my overly sugared drink and those cream cheese pineapple rolls.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're Pongu Pongu is the one that we have actually gotten things from. That one does breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, which is crazy. It does all the stuff. So I believe that's the BLDS is how they list that on all their maps when it does all of them.
Yeah.
So you get the standard stuff. You get the Pongu Lumpia is that pineapple cream cheese kind of spring roll thing that you were talking about. They got some specialty beverages. The Night Blossom is probably the one that we tried, which is apple pear.
Way too sugary.
Very sugary and
way
huge.
Too sugary.
I wish it was just a little smaller. I don't know.
We were able
apple
to
pear
split
slushy
between
with
3 people without having an issue.
Yeah, so it's the big claim to fame for it's got passion fruit bobas on the top of it, so kind of like
bobas. Yep.
Yeah, it's so the slushy is really sweet, and then the bobas are really tart, which is kind of cool for about 2 sips. Then you're like, I can't drink any more of this. So then of course they've got a couple of specialty alcohol options that are similar to that, as well as 2 beers that I believe are just rebadged other kind of somewhat limited run domestic
Disney
stuff. Disney draft beers that they have that are named specifically. The canteen is got a similar kind of setup. Satuli Canteen has a similar kind of situation. It's got more seating, outdoor seating, but it only does lunch and dinner, and it's got kind of specialty meat mixed in with other things, bowls.
They're actually known for being one of the best quick service in the park. So if you are trying to find a place to sit down and have a good meal, they are, like I said, known for having really good food, protein bowls. They do hamburger pods. They do a lot of really neat food, but good quality.
It looked unique. I was looking at the stuff, I'm I did not know they had these super unique. I was looking, it was they had chicken mixed with, sauteed with stuff, mixed with other stuff, or you get it with shrimp, or you get it with beef, or you can get it with tofu. They had all of the things. So it looked interesting for sure. One
of my favorite things about Santuli Canteen is they have it's one of those things kind of like we talked about with Dinoland, where there was an original structure, the RDA structure, and they repurposed it for the ACE structures. And this was supposed to be the RDA's cafeteria area that they then redid. One of my favorite things inside is they have a whole bunch of dog tags from the quote unquote, personnel that was from RDA. And if you look close enough, you're going to find a dog tag that has Joe Rohde's face on it.
Oh, funny. Of course. It's back to that detail, that detail that they're able to pull off out there. The story building is just amazing for all of that. So it's another good one. Yeah, it's a very distinctive building. You will see it. It's this big kind of arch.
And then right next door is Wind Traders, which is the only shopping area or shopping in that area. Shopping building. There are a couple kiosks, but this is the one where you can, what do they call? They call it Adopt a Banshee.
Adopt a Banshee. Yep.
So
originally, it was the only place in the park you could get one, in the entire property you could get one, and it became problematic. So you don't have to do that anymore.
So popular.
Yeah, it was kind of their version of a wand ceremony in a different unnamed theme park. But with this, it was kind of the idea is you'd walk in and somebody would kind of talk you through it. They kind of made it a buying an Apple Watch process,
or maybe building a lightsaber in
Yes.
again, we're comparing, but
Yep.
it was a very unique, individualized experience.
Yes. Yeah. And they eventually kind of said we can't, because it was such a limited operation that they kind of had to shut that down. And now you can buy it in a lot of places.
Now you can buy Banshees at the outlet store.
Outlet store. Yeah. So they kind of had to. Also, I feel like they overbuilt Banshees.
They did. They did. But they're basically the
shoulder puppets.
Yeah. I was going to say Marquette, but that's not it. You get what I'm saying, though.
Do you mean, are you trying to say marionette?
That's it. Not the road down the way, but
right. No, it's marionette in this. I think the difference is it's not like a string puppet. It's more like it's kind of controlled with like
it's the same thing that I see out at Renaissance festivals, because I work out at a Renaissance festival, not this year, obviously, but we have ones that are like griffins and dragons and that sort of thing. So it's the same idea, string behind you with a little like toggle that you twist and poke and all of that, and it'll create different head movements. And
Yep. A friend of mine actually got one. We were there. It was so I got to actually play with one for a little bit because she bought one. But it was they're pretty cool. Like they're, of all the things that like you can buy at Disney, like they're one of the better built things. They have a neat kind of build to them, but they are rather pricey. They're in the, I think, almost $200 range. So fun stuff. And then previous attractions, we kind of shoehorned this in here. We kind of talked about this already. Camp Minnie Mickey. There's nothing that's been closed in Pandora because Pandora is kind of first generation of its land. Mm-hmm. But before that was Camp Minnie Mickey. And you mentioned that was like the only place in Animal Kingdom at the time you could meet any of the Fab Five. Am I getting that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that was where Minnie and Mickey, hence Camp Minnie Mickey.
Minnie Mickey, yeah. Oh.
would be in their safari gear.
Yeah, and I feel like there was no background to Camp Minnie Mickey. I don't think there was any. They just kind of were like, we didn't put Beastly Kingdom here. Oh, crap. So they put
we're going to have like this little safari outpost where Minnie changes her outfits almost like Miss Piggy does, but she's nicer. So,
but she's nicer than Miss Piggy, so it's fine. Yeah. Technically, though, I did forget about this because it's been a while, but technically Festival of the Lion King was actually in Camp Minnie Mickey, and before they moved it to the Harambe Market area, and they rebuilt the jungle and the theater and the round thing that they had for it. So that was actually where you got to go see it, was in that spot. And it kind of had its own land. It was just like a meet and greet in Festival of Lion King. So they were able to kind of repurpose that. But so that was all that was there. That was kind of the previous attractions, if there is such a thing.
Now, kind of along with the previous attractions, before we wrap this up, if we ever get to the point of being able to be there after dark, I would highly recommend going and checking it out, because there's so many like dancing lights and bioluminescent things. There used to be, pre-COVID, a lot of interactive areas that you would be able to work with the fauna. So there was like one pod where you'd touch this and then it would mist out on an end, or like the drum circle area where they had actors coming out and like every hour put on a little drum show, but people were able to go up and bang in these areas that were hidden drums that would at night activate these different light sequences and all of that sort of entertainment. And I do know that like every night they had to go back and repaint some of the bioluminescence. So that was part of their keep up for the land that I'm not sure if they're doing right now.
It's kind of incredible when you're, like you said, at night, like, and then even the ground is like painted. So like you feel like you're walking on this kind of like these glowing like kind of star fields. It's just amazing to walk around out there.
So we'll see if they bring them back. I'm kind of putting them under the previous attractions right now because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this park currently I think is closing at 5:00. So it's well before nighttime.
Yeah. So it's hard to know, but it is, assuming that will be able to be brought back to its original form. It is one of the coolest things to see at Disney, anywhere, full stop, at Disney at night. It is, I have, like, I can close my eyes and have like a vivid, like full sensory experience as to what it was like to be there.
Hear the ambient noises, hear the waterfalls, see the bioluminescence bouncing off of the, floating mountains.
And you can hear the water, you can see, and then also the smell. I think they do create some fake smells for the flora, but they also
have the bromine smell?
the little bromine smell. Yeah, and they do actually have the smell from the canteen. They actually have like, because they're grilling all that meat and stuff there, it's got this distinctly kind of barbecue smell that you do not get anywhere else in the park to that degree.
Interesting.
I feel like they push it into the land. Because you can certainly get, like they they use the smelters to kind of move it into the thing. Because like in other areas, even if you can get the same kinds of food, you don't smell it that way. But I feel like they kind of made that a purposeful choice to have that more kind of raw food smell than you would
like
get.
A camp feel, like you're out in the woods, it feels like, even though this is a foreign land. You know, you're still out there exploring, doing this ecological vacation.
That's exactly, you're right. That's exactly the vibe. And so when you close your eyes, that's exactly what comes to mind. I can smell like grilling food. I can hear the mixture of the fauna sounds and the rushing water, and you can see this kind of glowing, multicolored kind of vibe going out into it. Feels very dense and large. It's pretty amazing.
It's beautiful. If they open it back up to late night, not even late night, after dark viewing, go go.
Yeah, whenever you feel safe, obviously, but when just you definitely is something that I'm sure that they intend to bring back if they can, but I really do hope that they do.
I hope so too. It was just one of the most special parts of that park, so it just makes sense that they would eventually bring it back. But
yeah, absolutely.
This has been Pandora and a wrap up of the Animal Kingdom Park.
Yeah.
For our Discovering series. And this has been WD Carousel of Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Ian.
And we hope you have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Bye, everybody.